The small moments were the big moments. Life lessons after 80 on meaning and memory. If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing and liking the video. It truly helps the channel grow and continue to create contents like this. In the beginning, you think the big moments will be the ones you remember. The graduation caps tossed into bright air. The promotions. The weddings. The trips with glossy photos. You think life is a chain of highlights, and you spend your younger years leaning forward, waiting for the next one like it's the real thing. At 82, I can tell you the truth without trying to sound wise. The small moments were the big moments. The ones you walked past. The ones you didn't photograph. The ones you thought you could repeat any time, until one day you couldn't. I didn't learn that in a lecture. I learned it in my kitchen. There was a stretch of years when the mornings in my house were a kind of gentle chaos. The coffee maker gurgling like it was clearing its throat. Someone looking for a sock. Someone asking where their homework was. My wife humming at the sink, that half melody she always did when she was thinking. The windows were fogged with the breath of a warm house in winter. Outside, the world was gray and cold, but inside we were making it through another ordinary Tuesday. At the time, I wanted the mornings to be quieter, cleaner, more efficient. I wanted the mess to hurry up and become something tidy I could be proud of. I didn't realize that the mess was the proof we were together. I didn't realize that the sound of a child's footsteps pounding down the stairs would someday feel like music I couldn't find again. I remember one particular dinner, plain as plain can be. Meatloaf, I think. Maybe chicken. The kind of meal that doesn't deserve a special plate. The kids were bickering softly, the way siblings do, testing the edges of each other. My wife asked them about school, and they answered with those half sentences kids use when their minds are already elsewhere. I was tired. I had a stack of work waiting. I chewed quickly, ready to move on. Then, for some reason, someone told a joke. It wasn't even a good one. But it landed at just the right angle. My son laughed so hard he snorted. My daughter rolled her eyes and then, despite herself, she laughed too. My wife laughed with her whole face, the kind of laugh that changes the light in the room. And I laughed, surprised by my own laugh, like it had been hiding. That moment lasted maybe 15 seconds. 15 seconds. And yet, when I close my eyes now, I can still see the way the lamplight warmed the table. I can still hear the clink of forks. I can still feel the soft relief of belonging. If you asked me about the big accomplishments from that year, I'd have to think. But that laugh comes back like a familiar hand on my shoulder. It's strange, isn't it? We chase meaning like it's an achievement, but meaning sneaks in through the side door while you're washing dishes. When you're young, you tell yourself the ordinary days are placeholders. You say, I'll really live when the kids are older. I'll really rest when the project is done. I'll really appreciate things when life slows down. But life doesn't hand you a certificate that says, congratulations, you've arrived at the meaningful part. The meaningful part is the part you're already in, the one you keep calling just a day. I've sat with many elders, and the stories that come out at the end of life are almost never the ones we imagine. Rarely do people say, I wish I had spent more hours in the office. They talk about the way their father used to whistle in the garage. They talk about the smell of pancakes on Saturday. They talk about the sound of their mother's keys in the door. They talk about a quiet walk after dinner where nobody said much, but everyone felt safe. I think the small moments become big because they hold the shape of love. Love doesn't always announce itself. Most of the time it's a routine. A ride to practice. A packed lunch. A blanket pulled up over someone's shoulders. Text me when you get home. It's the repetition that makes a life. It's the steady hand, not the fireworks. There was a morning in my 40s when I was running late. I had a meeting I didn't want to miss. I was halfway out the door when my daughter called out, Dad, can you fix this? It was something small, a button popped off her coat. I remember my impatience rising like a heat in my chest. I almost said, not now. I almost made the meeting more important than her small request. But something in her voice stopped me. I came back, sat on the edge of the couch, and threaded the needle with clumsy fingers. She watched me closely, like she was studying what kind of man I was. I sewed the button back on, tied the knot, and she smiled. Then she leaned into me for a second, just a second, and whispered, "Thank you? I have forgotten the meeting. I cannot tell you who was in that room or what we decided. But I remember the weight of her shoulder against my arm. I remember the way she ran out the door, coat buttoned, as if the day could not harm her now. That's what I mean. The small moments weren't small. They were the foundation. They were the beams holding up the whole house. We just didn't know to look. If you're listening right now, let me offer you a gentle invitation. Not a command. Just an invitation. The next time you're doing something ordinary, folding laundry, making coffee, driving a familiar route, pause for 2 seconds and notice it. Notice the way the light falls on your countertop. Notice the sound of someone breathing nearby. Notice your own hands still capable of care. Because one day, those ordinary sounds will become souvenirs. And it isn't only family either. It's the quiet morning when you step outside and the air smells like rain, and you realize you're alive. It's the walk you take for no reason except to move your body through the world. It's the phone call with a friend where you talk about nothing and hang up lighter. It's the moment you hold the door for a stranger, and they smile like they needed that kindness more than they can say. I used to believe memories were made in grand places. But some of my most precious memories are made in my own hallway. The scuff mark on the wall where someone carried in a bicycle. The dent in the baseboard from a toy. The faint stain on the table that never came out. These aren't imperfections to me now. They're proof of life lived close. When my wife and I sit together these days, our conversations are slower. We don't rush to fill the air. Sometimes we just listen to the kettle and watch the steam curl up like a soft ghost. And I think about how many times we did this before without realizing it was sacred. We were always leaning toward the next thing. If I could go back, I would tell my younger self, stop treating the present like a waiting room. Stop postponing your attention. The big moments will happen, sure, but they're not what will carry you when the years pile up. What will carry you are the quiet days that taught you how to love. So tonight, wherever you are, imagine gathering up the small moments the way you gather coins from a pocket. The bedtime story. The shared glance across the table. The morning you woke up early and the house was still, and you felt peace for no reason. These are not scraps. They are the feast. And in the second part, I want to talk about the moment I realized I had been running past the treasure all along, the day I stood in an empty house and heard, in the silence, the echo of years like footsteps that had moved on. The kids were grown, off building lives of their own. The refrigerator still hummed, but it sounded lonelier. I walked from room to room and saw the spaces where life used to pile up, shoes by the door, backpacks on the chair, a jacket tossed like someone planned to return in 5 minutes. I stood in the doorway of my son's old bedroom and I could almost hear him, not as a memory you force, but as a presence that rises when you don't resist it. The squeak of a bed frame. A drawer opening. A muffled laugh at something I would have considered a distraction back then. I realized, with a tenderness that hurt, that the days I once called busy were the days I would pay anything to live again. That's the trick of time. It turns the ordinary into gold after it's gone. People ask me sometimes, what should I do so I don't have regrets? They expect me to say something grand, travel more, earn more, chase your dreams. And those things have their place. But if you want to reduce regret, start smaller. When someone you love speaks, turn your body toward them. When you eat dinner, taste it. When you laugh, let it be loud. When a child asks you to look at something they made, look as if it matters, because it does. A life is not measured by how many monumental days you had. It's measured by how many ordinary days you were awake for. I think about my mother, long gone now. Her greatest gift to me wasn't a big speech. It was the way she would stop what she was doing when I entered the room and say my name like it was a good thing. She had tired hands, but when she put them on my shoulders, the world steadied. I didn't know then that I was collecting one of the memories that would warm me in old age. I just thought it was normal. And maybe that's what makes these moments so powerful. They're simple enough to repeat, so we assume they'll always be available. We say, I'll call tomorrow. I'll visit next week. I'll slow down when things calm down. But tomorrow is not a guarantee, and when is a mirage. The older I get, the more I understand that attention is love in its purest form. Not the kind of attention that performs, not the kind that checks a phone while someone is talking, but the kind that says, I am here with you. That kind of presence turns a walk into a memory, turns a cup of coffee into a small ceremony, turns a quiet morning into a sanctuary. I used to think paying attention meant doing something extra, planning, purchasing, arranging. Now I think paying attention is mostly subtraction. It's removing the hurry. Removing the mental rehearsal of what you'll say next. Removing the need to prove you're busy. You don't have to decorate a moment to make it meaningful. You just have to show up. There's a scene that visits me often. I'm in my late 30s, coming home after a long day. The sky is already dark, and the porch light makes a small circle on the steps. I open the door, and the house smells like onions and butter, like someone cared enough to cook. My wife is at the stove, stirring without looking rushed. A pot lid rattles softly. In the living room, one of the kids is on the floor with crayons spread out like confetti. I remember hovering in the doorway with my mind still at work. I could feel the day clinging to me, all the unresolved emails and small irritations. My instinct was to keep carrying it, to bring the office into the kitchen like a muddy boot. But my daughter looked up and said, "Come see." It was a drawing. A lopsided house, a sun in the corner, stick figures holding hands. She had drawn our dog bigger than anyone else, as if he were a hero. She pointed at the figures and named them, proud and serious. And then she smiled at me, waiting. That smile asked for a choice: stay in the storm of my head, or step into the calm of the room. I stepped in. I sat on the floor. My knees creaked. I asked her questions about the picture as if it were a masterpiece in a museum. She answered with full confidence, inventing details as she went. My son wandered in, grabbed a crayon, and added a ridiculous cloud shaped like a dinosaur. My wife laughed from the stove without turning around. And in that small, unplanned moment, the day released me. I didn't know it then, but that was one of the big moments. What makes a memory stick isn't always the event. It's the feeling. The nervous relief after a hard day when you realize you're safe. The warmth in your chest when someone sees you and is glad you're there. The quiet satisfaction of being useful in a small way. Washing the dishes while someone you love tells you a story. Wiping down the table, folding towels still warm from the dryer. When I was working, I thought I needed to make time for those things, as if time were a product you could manufacture. But time is already here. What you make is attention. You decide what gets the best of you. And you can practice this, even if your life is crowded. Try a simple experiment. The next time you're with someone you love, do one small thing that says, "I'm not leaving this moment early." Put your phone in another room. Sit down when you talk instead of standing with one foot pointed toward your next task. Ask a question and wait for the real answer. Let a silence happen without rushing to fill it. These are tiny acts, but they're how you build a life that will feel full later. Because later is hungry. Later will eat whatever you saved. I've watched people reach retirement and suddenly feel panic, not because they don't have plans, but because their days are no longer stocked with the familiar noise. The meetings stop. The deadlines disappear. And then the question arrives: what have I been doing all these years when I wasn't paying attention? That question doesn't have to be cruel. It can be a doorway. You can begin noticing now, even if you've been sleepwalking. Life is generous that way. It keeps offering moments, even after we've missed many. I once took a walk with my father near the end of his life. He moved slowly, his breath shallow, but he insisted on going. The sidewalk was cracked and uneven, and we held a careful pace. We didn't talk about anything important. That's what's funny. We talked about the neighbor's new fence. We talked about the way the leaves were turning early that year. We talked about a dog that barked too much. Halfway down the block he stopped, put his hand on my arm, and just looked at the trees as if he were reading them. After a long pause, he said, "I wish I'd noticed this more." He didn't mean the trees. He meant everything. He meant the whole ordinary world that had been trying to love him through simple beauty. After he died, that sentence echoed in me. Not as regret, exactly, but as instruction. Notice. Notice before you have to wish you did. The small moments are everywhere, and they're not all sweet. Some are hard, sitting with someone who's grieving, driving in silence after an argument, holding your tongue until your anger cools. But even those moments become meaningful later, because they show who you were when life asked something of you. They become proof of your character. You don't need a perfect life to have a meaningful life. You need a present life. If you want to remember your days, slow them down with your attention. A hurried day blurs. A noticed day leaves fingerprints. Sometimes I look back and realize that the happiest season of my life wasn't the one with the most success. It was the one with the most ordinary evenings. The one where dinner happened around the same time most nights. The one where we had a worn-out couch and everyone piled onto it anyway. The one where we argued and made up and kept showing up. The one where we weren't trying to be extraordinary. We were just together. And together is the point. So here's the lesson I'd like to leave you with, spoken as gently as I can: don't wait for life to feel important. Treat the small moments like they're sacred, because one day you'll realize they were. Call your friend back. Sit at the table a little longer. Walk a little slower. Kiss the forehead. Say the thank you. Turn your face toward the person who's talking. Let the morning be quiet without filling it with noise. Let the ordinary day be enough. Because when you reach the end, the memories that come to sit beside you in the dark are rarely the fireworks. They're the soft glow in the kitchen. They're the sound of laughter from the next room. They're the warm mug in your hands. They're the footsteps on the stairs. The small moments were the big moments, all along. I'll tell you about one more memory I didn't recognize as a gift at the time. A Sunday morning, nothing planned. The newspaper spread out on the table, the pages smelling faintly of ink. My wife was still in her robe, hair messy, eyes soft. The kids drifted in and out like they were visiting from another planet called sleep. Someone turned on a radio in the other room, low enough that the music felt like a secret. I remember thinking, we should do something. We should go somewhere. We should make the day count. And then my son sat down across from me, stole a piece of toast, and said, "What are you reading?" He wasn't really asking about the news. He was asking to be near me. So I read him a silly headline. He laughed. I read another. He argued with my interpretation, like he was already practicing how to be an adult. My daughter wandered over and leaned against my shoulder, not saying a word. My wife reached across the table and squeezed my hand once, quick and casual, like punctuation. That squeeze is what I remember most. We spend so much time hunting for meaning that we overlook how meaning usually arrives, quietly, in the form of someone choosing to be close. And closeness is built in small units. In minutes. In gestures. In the decision to stay. The grand declarations matter, yes, but they're held up by 1,000 ordinary acts. If you want a life filled with love, don't wait to make a speech. Make a cup of tea. Don't wait for the anniversary trip. Fold the blanket over their lap. Don't wait for the perfect apology. Say, "I was wrong," and mean it. If you're raising children, I know you can feel like you're drowning in details. Lunches, rides, permission slips, laundry that multiplies like rabbits. Let me say something that might steady you. Those details are not distractions from life. They are life. The repeated care is the story your children will remember, even if they can't name it. They will remember that you were there. They will remember the sound of you in the house. They will remember how safe the ordinary felt. If you're living alone, the small moments still matter. The way you talk to yourself in the morning. The kindness you show a stranger. The ritual you create. Watering a plant, opening the blinds, cooking something nourishing. Your life does not become meaningful only when someone else is watching. It becomes meaningful when you inhabit it with respect. And if you're carrying grief, I want you to know something elders learn the hard way. The small moments can carry you through sorrow better than big plans can. Sometimes all you can do is wash a dish, make the bed, step outside for air, feel the sun for a moment. That counts. That is you still participating in life. That is courage in its quietest form. So maybe the real practice is this: don't rush past today. Notice. Stay. The small moments are the ones that last. They become your life's gold.